Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Prime Directive as liberal Eurocentric superiority. I want to read off the panel description before we get going here. It is Starfleet's Prime Directive is evidence that Borg, Dominion, and Klingons are not the only ethnocentric civilizations in Star Trek. Let's talk about how and why deciding what's best for another culture is problematic regardless of intentions, even in space. My name is Justin. I am a fan of Star Trek, have been as long as I can remember. You can learn more about me by visiting my website. You can scan this QR code here or visit justingrays.org.
I am Stephanie. I have been a fan of Star Trek since I was in a linguistics class in college, and our teacher showed us the Darmok episode.
That's a good one.
Yeah, especially in a linguistics class. And I was like, I remember this vaguely from my childhood. Let me get back into this. And it's almost been a decade now.
So the Prime Directive, there's a quote that I want to read that Benjamin Sisko gave in the episode The Maquis, Part 2. This episode of Deep Space Nine linked into The Next Generation and was also the forebearer for Voyager. So there was this huge story arc that brought in all the elements about the Federation-Cardassian War, why people are why Federation citizens are staying on the Cardassian side of the border and the demilitarized zone, all that. On Earth, there is no poverty, no crime, no war. You look out the window of Starfleet headquarters and you see paradise. Well, it's easy to be a saint in paradise, but the Maquis do not live in paradise. Out there, in the demilitarized zone, all the problems haven't been solved yet. Out there are no saints, just people. Angry, scared, determined people who are going to do whatever it takes to survive, whether it meets with Federation approval or not. That was, for me, the first time that got me really thinking about, what is the Federation really up to? Is the Prime Directive really there to help keep them from influencing other civilizations and cultures? Or is it to maintain their ideals as being the best ideals for everybody?
Well, I think just as with all human nature, you're just trying to classify all these different things. So it's like you want to place yourself at the top of a pyramid as a human, as being the most evolved. And no matter what you say about how highfalutin your ideals are, that's what you're trying to do, is just place yourself in a hierarchy. And I think that when, especially Deep Space Nine in particular, when they're being asked to come in and protect people, it's obviously a super stratified situation, because one person is able to influence and protect, and all these people on the planet are taking for granted that the Federation isn't going to do what the Cardassians did, even though they're on this Cardassian thing orbiting their planet with all the same weapons.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. You're just choosing the lesser of two evils.
I really got that sense in the pilot episode of Deep Space Nine. The scene with Bashir and Kira, where Bashir is going on, this is where heroes are made. Real frontier medicine.
It's like 6-shooters and fighting with people on the frontier. No, you could have left them alone a little bit, but somebody else was already here messing stuff up, so then you have to come. Mm-hmm. But Bashir is still looking at it from a first colonizer standpoint.
But leading into it from Next Generation, the Bajorans, Ensign Rowe, they were already going, hey, the Cardassians are killing us. They're occupying our planet. They are pillaging. They are doing all these horrific things. Come in and help us. And the Federation's going, nope, Prime Directive, hands off. We already fought with the Cardassians once. Don't need to get involved, even though we know for a fact they're doing all these horrific things. We are going to just go ahead and wait for you to get them off your planet, if you can. Good luck. And the only Bajoran politician that they listened to was that one guy who was the poster child for the Bajorans who could dance. I can't remember his name.
He could dance?
Yeah, that's the one thing I can remember. Dr. Crusher said that he was a great dancer. She had met him at some conference somewhere. And Ensign Rowe was being super snarky and saying, look, nobody listens to this guy. He is an idiot that we put up for the Federation to talk to because he is respectable to the Federation and no Bajoran actually pays any attention to him because he is not here.
He's like a token Black Republican.
He is the token Black Republican,
Yeah.
yes. And so they really had to talk to the guy with the voice box and half his face melted away. That was the actual leader guy who could do anything. And then they ended up showing that, the Cardassians were still doing their shenanigans, and despite the Federation following the Prime Directive, some of the highest levels were in bed with the Cardassians because the Prime Directive was there to keep the status quo, even though the status is not quo.
Well, it's like they're always talking about not interfering with what each planet has going on its own. But the second you're out and exploring and dicking around in space, you are interfering with other people's stuff. Like, there's the episode where they're literally, like, being hidden it's the Next Generation. They're, like, hidden anthropologists inside, like, caves watching people.
Oh, with the proto-Vulcans.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And they're just, like, sitting there watching them, and then, like, the stuff malfunctions, and, like, the proto-Vulcans can see them, and you're just like, well, now they probably think you're gods, because it's, like, the level of technological difference. If you're just on the planet with your iPhone taking pictures of people, they're going to be like, what goddamn magic is this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like living in a technological age and looking at Star Trek as like this neat thing in the future, but like we can all kind of do it already. We forget like how, even if you're like 50 years old right now, what you were seeing 50 years ago, if someone just showed up with an iPhone when you were 6, you'd be like, nah, witchcraft. And that is part of like being able to create power structure. If you are a witch or a god to these people, you're going to be in power.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in college, I was studying. I studied 2 different kinds of classes, and I was really struck by the difference between sociology and anthropology. And sociology is what happens between equals. Sociology, you can create experiments and introduce new ideas into the matrix and see what happens because you're dealing with equals. And these are the people that you respect, except you're going to experiment on them. Okay, this makes sense. And then anthropology is people you look down on.
Yep.
Those primitive cultures. Yes. And we don't want to mess with them so we can see these cool primitive cultures doing what those primitive cultures do. And that offended me so much.
It is. And
yes, it is.
Not to age you. Anthropology's trying to get away from that now because it's like they've seen how awful they were.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like when you're back in the day and it's like white guys telling other white guys what the brown people are doing, like obviously it's all about being like they're backwards and this is what's going on.
And
they're like
cute.
Yeah, but it's like it is, but it's like they made this thing where brown and black people were less evolved because they were living on different continents and doing different things because they hadn't had this forced density that the gross cesspool that Europe had going on where people had to leave. Yeah. And it's like then you go and you're like, oh, look at this idyllic thing where they don't need to live in a cesspool. Let's judge them. And like they were doing the same thing in Star Trek. Like they'd be like, oh, these people are just kind of living in a cesspool. We're not judging them, but like we're...
And the people that Star Trek were...
It's an unfortunate point, too, that they also used, that Europeans, European descent, used to also treat the Asians and Chinese cultures very much in the same way. It's just that...
all the non-whites.
Yeah.
It's just that, and actually all these cultures as well, some of them have various aspects that actually they kind of know what they're doing socially, whereas Europe's got a European culture that's been spreading like a plague, has things really messed up on these areas. Maybe you should be learning from some of what these people are doing.
But when you have these big boats with these big sails and you have these guns and you go into other places, you're like, we're not going to listen to you. Like, that's what it comes down to is you come in and you think you're right. And, like, no matter how much Star Trek tries to be like, ideals, Star Trek's doing the same thing. Like, when you're looking at a problem, like, what to do on this war. Okay, so I was watching Voyager earlier today. And there was the one where they find the Friendship 1 probe.
Oh, yes.
And the Friendship 1 probe had information on it that had this other planet build a whole bunch of nuclear weapons and destroy themselves based on the information in the probe. And Janeway was like, well, we're not going to help them because the Prime Directive. And then everyone else was like, Janeway, though, this is like, we already messed up the Prime Directive by having the Friendship 1 thing crash into the planet. And Janeway was like, you're right, but, like, it wasn't us. Like, it was so long ago. And this is, like, a thing that white people are still doing where they're like, it was so long ago, though, that it's, like, a different culture. And you're like, it is. But there's a cause and effect.
cargo cults.
They've already been messed with.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I noticed in Star Trek is the military equivalence creates equality. So it's like they'll fight with the Klingons, they'll fight with the Borg, they'll fight with the Romulans because they can fight back. And so they have no problem with interfering with these people because they treat them as equals because they got military stuff.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that also is like, why are you only looking at people as your equals when they can shoot back?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's first season of Next Generation. Something Picard said here. This is the episode where there were these two planets, and one of them thought that they had a disease still for the past couple centuries. And they had been cured of it already. They were just all addicted to drugs and just didn't know it.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the episode. I just remember that Matthew, what's-his-face, the guy who played Kirk's son in Star Trek 2, he was in it before he died of AIDS. Picard says, Beverly, the Prime Directive is not just a set of rules. It is a philosophy, and a very correct one. History has proved again and again that whenever mankind interferes with a less developed civilization, no matter how well-intentioned that interference may be, the results are invariably disastrous. So sure, perhaps, one planet, their entire economic and social structure was based off of making the drug. And the other planet, their entire structure was based off of being able to buy that drug. But both were stagnant in that no one knew how to even fix the ships that were being used to get from drug-addicted planets to planet of the drugs and back again. The Federation was already interfering when they, came and answered the distress signal. So you're already there. And granted, it is incredibly difficult to decide what to do when you're in that position. Do you help, the people who are addicted to the drugs? How do you then help the people who don't know how to do anything else except for refined drugs? But the Federation has such vast resources that they could have put their politicians and scientists and everybody from all their worlds onto it and said, all right, we can help you out. I mean, they did it with the planet with all the kids who were 300 years old, a century earlier. They could do it with people who already have a baseline education and can adapt those skills to something else.
But then that's also like a form of colonization, though.
It is, yes. But
because they
were being asked for help already, though.
But shouldn't you just not be helping people? Like the Prime Directive says, like, don't interfere, but then it's like also whenever they're answering a distress call, they're inherently interfering. And a lot of the civilizations that are like, we have this little blip in space, it's from the satellite, aren't warp capable. So it's like you're already going a step backwards to help people because they're almost as advanced as you. So it's like you're willing to drag people up from this half step behind you.
Mm-hmm.
But just like let's go back to Enterprise, how the Vulcans wouldn't give us warp technology after Zephram Cochrane had already developed the first step of warp technology. Like you're still just setting up the same set of problems.
As much as I felt the Vulcans were assholes throughout Enterprise,
assholes. I mean, yeah, it's
such huge assholes. There are no kids in here, right? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in art.
Just in art. Okay. I felt that the Vulcans were right in not giving us the answers right away to warp drive because antimatter is hella dangerous, and we don't want to be playing around with things that can destroy things really fast.
But we already did that, though.
We already did that, yeah.
A mess, blowing stuff up on our own, where it's like maybe the Vulcans could have been like, hey guys, you could blow less stuff up.
Yeah.
You did this.
But they also let us figure out how to blow less stuff up. And we're there each step of the way to give us a bit of help. They didn't, as much as the humans said that they were slowing us down, they weren't getting in the way either. They were there to help us pick ourselves up if we did trip. if we ask them.
Weren't they trying at one point to get T'Pol to sabotage us?
I think she was
She was
just
reporting,
monitoring.
but I don't think she was actively sabotaging.
Well, there was like one episode though where it's that dude in the gray robe is like talking to T'Pol, and maybe I'm getting my people mixed together, but I feel like he was talking to her in a way that was like, you can't let them have this specific piece of technology. No one? Okay, I might have made it up. Never mind.
I think there is something along the lines of them being concerned about the humans getting access to something, but it was more of just if it happens, we really want this to be under a monitored circumstances, and we don't want them to be getting it in the wrong way, and we are the ones who know what is the right way and the wrong way.
And that's the problem, is like, why are the Vulcans telling us what's the right way and the wrong way? Like, we're willing to share our information with them. They don't know everything about humanity. Why can't they share some, like, more?
That did happen on several occasions. Like, even with the Andorians, the humans, they need to know what the real story is.
Well,
with the
pink
Andorians.
skin.
Yeah. The Vulcans were very problematic in that they were deciding what could and could not be shared, and not the way that they were deciding what could and could not be shared was a huge problem every step of the way. But some of the things that they didn't share, there were some logical reasons for it, I find.
Well,
It's
they're always
dumb.
able to logic their way out of it, though. Like,
But then
the
they
thing.
also lied their heads off for other things, like the listening station on Pajim.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that was a huge mistake on their parts.
Well,
And then blaming T'Pol and Archer for it being discovered because they're assholes.
Well,
and
you shouldn't have been poking
couldn't
around
own up on
Starfleet,
it.
like, obviously.
Yeah.
There was this episode on Voyager where Janeway, they come to this planet that has the technology that can jump them like halfway home.
Oh my god, okay, but you wouldn't steal
yes.
it from them, and they've already been, like, dicking around on this planet. I was like, Janeway, you already screwed your crew over, like, 4 times at this point, and, like, Janeway's my most favorite captain. I will fight about Janeway to the death.
Yeah. But that one episode was like...
But there are times when it's like, they wouldn't miss this weird plate that can launch you 1,000,000 light years closer to home. I know they're only 70,000 away, but, like, approximately a million. And it's just like, that's cool that you're respecting their version of the Prime Directive, but you've already been out here blowing stuff up, taking technology from other people. Somebody got
Flirting with their leader.
Yeah, somebody got like a replicator from the dudes with the sponges in their hair.
Oh, the Kazon?
The Kazon got replicators from you and were starting shit in their sector. So it's just like, you've already ruined the Delta Quadrant. Just steal this and run away. Like, just carjack these people, take your little pad, and go.
They kept
and they just were like,
no.
Yeah, just like the white man loves to. They stomped through there and ruined the Delta Quadrant.
It is a very good point. The Voyager of how that the whole series ultimately was a case of why the Prime Directive can be very important in that other cultures need to do stuff on their own, and the more that you decide to fix things for them, or, oh, here, let me help, the more there's cross-contamination and dangerous elements that you're able to put in. And that, they destroyed the balance in the Delta Quadrant just by going in there and interacting in all these ways. And many times, we know what's best.
Well, they know what's best from a Eurocentric Star Trek. This is who's writing it perspective. Like, Brandon Braga is like, let's just bring it on home to us being right. And that's what we want in our entertainment, is we want to feel like the good guys. So it's like, we don't disagree with Janeway running around and being a douche, because you're like, I'd almost do that, and if I was the best version of myself, would I steal their technology? Probably not. But
if you need it, you need it.
But like, I'm one of the Maquis ensigns who's like down in, like, I don't know, like conduit scrubbing, just seething about how she didn't steal that. Like, I'm starting to mutiny. Like, I am in that episode on the Maquis side. Yeah. Because I'm just like, we're getting home without you, Janeway. Like, we're kneecapping people, we're going. That's it.
I imagine if I were me as I am now in Starfleet, I'd probably end up in the Maquis.
I mean, I wouldn't be in Starfleet. They would have been like, math test, and I would be like, nah. But
you don't need math tests if you're a linguist.
Also, nah.
All right.
I'm out of Starfleet. But like Maquis, I could get behind, because it's like pretty much their whole thing was fighting for home.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what would you do if all of a sudden your home was on the wrong side of the border? Like, you found all of Minnesota absorbed into Canada. You'd be like, oh, well, free healthcare, we're fine. Yeah, exactly.
I'd be down for Canada, but...
What if it was, like, evil Canada? Like, they all have mustaches all of a sudden, and you're saying, no, I don't want to be part of that.
The villainous goatee.
Well, I guess Canada is just not that good of a parallel for evil.
Maybe in the Harry Turtledove universe, where the Civil War was lost.
Canada would be evil. Yeah, they'd be evil Canada.
Well, not Canada, but Quebec would be even more evil.
I'm just imagining Canadians. We're going to take you over if that's okay with you.
Okay. Yeah. We're just going to borrow all your resources. We'll give them back.
All right, before we go forward, would someone be willing to pass forward one of the decanters of water, please? Don't know why they're always all in the same spots.
Oh.
They're all empty?
All right, never mind then. We'll just wait till room service comes back.
Tap water? Tap water?
Yeah, tap water always does.
Oh.
Thank you very, very much.
Such service.
Speaking of the Maquis, Michael Eddington, back to Deep Space Nine. He had a great line. I think it was Eddington. I probably should have written down who said this, but I think Eddington said this one. And the Federation is pledged not to interfere with the internal affairs of others. How convenient that must be for you. To turn a deaf ear to those who suffer behind a line on a map. There is a point where the Federation, when people are suffering, they will say, we will get involved because you're asking us to. But then there's a point where they're saying, no, you're over there, and you work with, you're part of this other culture's whatever the issue is. We got to just let you work your own shit out.
Well, it's them deciding who's the good guy and the bad guy in the situation. Like, they have to look at this as objectively as you can, coming from a culture that views itself as superior. And you have to be like, what part of this conflict warrants my involvement? Like, is it so badly skewed in terms of technology in one direction that I have to get involved on the underdog side? Is it so badly skewed in terms of just, like, moral... Well, they're making up their morals for themselves, but it's just like... There has to be a line that they decide to cross. And Janeway's all over the place. I think Picard's a little bit more focused on where he draws his line, but he's able to draw that line. Maybe because he's in the Alpha Quadrant still, and they've already met everybody and have decided
they're in
where
paradise.
that line is. So it's just like, whenever you decide who is the good and bad guy in a situation, you have to look at why you think that they are bad or good. Like, this is just the biggest thing in anthropology that they're like, we shouldn't do this anymore, and everyone still does it. Like, that's our human nature, is to be like, what tribe are we in? Our tribe is good. Everyone else is bad. And that's just like a protection thing. And when you look at, like, poor, weak, sad people getting beat up by their Cardassians, you're going to be like, we have to protect these little sad puppies because they remind us of ourselves more than this militaristic monster that we see the Cardassians to be. So it's...
one thing to say is Picard, he's in paradise. That's one thing that Picard, I think he faced a lot more than any others. That any other captains, instances where there was having to have to smack down his own people for the Prime Directive. That the scientists with the silicon creatures, great example there. That. These are Federation scientists, and the answer is obvious. I mean, it's just this tiny little area here. You can just eradicate them all and all that. No, they're their own sentient life. They inhabit the planet. That Federation, fuck off. that this is the Prime Directive.
But it's also like, what do you understand as sentient, and what do you understand as human-like?
But you also have Star Trek Insurrection too, which of course had that against the Federation hierarchy itself.
Oh yeah. How much does it take, Admiral? 1,000, 50,000, 1,000,000? How much does it take?
Yeah, it's just many instances in which he had that there weren't to the site. I think in Picard's case, that he did actually have a very clear line, so much so that when even his own people or superiors were doing something they really shouldn't be, that he laid the smackdown on it.
There's that time Wesley broke the law and, was sentenced to death.
They had to save him, because you can't just kill Will Wheaton like that. That was very scarring for everybody.
Yeah.
That was season 1.
That was season 1.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, no, honestly, nobody likes Wesley all that much. But
Will
like,
Wheaton doesn't even like Wesley.
No, that's because like, that's just he's Wesley for life. Like, I would hate being Wesley if I were Wesley for life. But like, you have to save Wesley. He is somebody's child, and like that's what it comes down to. No matter like what level of Wesley he's at, is that he's still this person Picard loves in some senses child.
Mm-hmm.
So your rules to break are also based on that. Like, how far am I willing to go for you as an individual? And that happens in every Star Trek series. There's always an episode where one person, Harry, Kim, stupid Torres' self and Paris, like they're doing stuff and you're just like, you guys should not be doing this right now. And you're just dying a little bit because you know that they're breaking the Prime Directive so hard for this one person who made a complete ass of themselves that you're questioning if they should be breaking the Prime Directive as you're watching this entertainment series. And you agree with them because you also love Kim, Torres, 7 of 9, Picard, like whoever it is who's breaking this law. And you're like, would I go that far for them if I was on this ship? In this theory where I have training, yes, maybe.
Maybe.
And that's the line that Star Trek is always trying to be like hitting as it moves. Who is human? Who is part of the Prime Directive? Who is the other? And it changes.
Mm-hmm. One of the better times they dealt with the Prime Directive, I think, was when they had to deal with it with other humans. The Next Generation episode, The Masterpiece Society. That was the one where there was those humans from 22nd century Earth didn't want to deal with Earth anymore. They're like, fuck those guys. They screwed the planet up. We're done. They built their perfect city under a dome and did a eugenics program so that it was like, all right, this person is going to be prime minister because we say he's going to be prime minister. And blah, blah, blah. It's the one with Hannah Bates in it.
Yeah, and the one where the dome is going to be destroyed and they all have to leave because of that.
Yeah. I mean, they get it fixed. They move the stellar core fragment just enough, and then reinforce the rest of it because of Geordi's visor. Because a blind man is able to do this thing, but I wouldn't exist on your world because y'all do eugenics and bleh. And eugenics is his own issue, which could be a whole other panel. But Picard starts going on about, if we ever needed a reminder of the importance of the Prime Directive, we have it now. Riker talks about how they're human. Prime Directive doesn't apply. So Picard says, doesn't it? Our very presence damaged, perhaps destroyed, a way of life. Whether or not we agree with that way of life, whether or not they are human, is ultimately irrelevant, number one. We are responsible. And yeah, that shows that anytime you make contact with somebody, that changes forever what they're going to be doing. If you're going to have a total hands-off policy where you don't show yourselves ever, then you're going full isolationist.
You should have already chosen it, though. Like,
you
that's
should have
the
chosen
thing.
it from the get-go.
It's the second that you are forced to not be an isolationist is the second that you have to grapple with who else fits into the definition of us.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like what happened to the U.S. in World War II, where we were trying, just dragging our feet. Oh, Pearl Harbor. Wait a sec. Now we're in it.
Yep.
You can't, you were deciding based on what somebody else did who was good and bad, but it also comes down to maybe not been so set on being your own us before.
Well, in the case of Pearl Harbor, there it was an issue that Roosevelt was absolutely fixated on what was going on in Europe. And, oh yeah, those Asians, whatever, they're lesser. Anyways, that doesn't matter on there. And
surprise, the Asians are fucking coming for you.
Well, what was ridiculous about it was, do you know about the letter declaration of war that the Japanese sent out? They sent it out in multiple pages. It was this 8 or 9 page document. It was sent over a period of weeks. So the U.S. government had weeks to be able to prepare for the fact that it was being sent out. And the final page is one that effectively said, yeah, we're declaring war. But it was clear from the first page that this is where they're going. Yeah. And so for months, the Roosevelt administration was actively ignoring this, even though they had this information right there, and that, oh yeah, we don't care, and then Pearl Harbor happens, and oh, who could have known that this was going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like you don't consider them dangerous because you think that they're this backwards land over here. And that backwards land can't reach you across that really big ocean. Like, we have a slightly big ocean over here, but this is the really big one. Like, they can't do that. And then they come flying across, and you're just like, oh, maybe we should have been paying more attention to this set of people who we thought were so much less than us.
This is where it comes down to just how single-minded he was, because even the military itself was telling him that. And he just refused to believe that these monkeys in Asia could be doing that.
Well, and that's like his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that a lot of cultures are very able to do. It's like you wrap yourself up in how great you are, and you forget that like other people's greatness is maybe not beholden to your own greatness.
Yeah.
And that they can, I mean, because like Asia's been doing amazing things for a very long time. Like they have gunpowder first. Like, who the hell is gunpowder?
Yeah, but and sorry, if anything using that term with it, that is actually how they did. If you check out some of the World War II cartoons that they had, depicting the Japanese and the Chinese, they actually do depict them as if they're literally monkeys.
Still depicting black people. Then also, it's like they're America's very racist. Like, it's racist.
It's straight up.
In case you haven't been paying attention for the last year, even. What? There's racism? Oh my god. Anyway, yeah.
But there was an episode of the original series, The Apple. I'm just going to say it's The Apple because I think that's the right one. It's the one where they beam down and there's the snake-headed god that is a giant rock structure that the children of Vol give fruit to. And aside from wondering how the hell that basket of fruit is going to power this machine, I still can't understand that part.
It's like the DeLorean at the third movie.
Yeah. But, Spock is the one going, look, they're healthy, they're happy, we should leave them the fuck alone. And Kirk and McCoy are going, no, they're totally stagnant, they've been like this forever, we need to change things so that they're more like us. It's like, all right, well, you can't have it both ways.
But Kirk and McCoy are classic cowboys. Like,
yeah, that is true. They are classic cowboys.
If it was,
in fact, DeForest Kelley was in cowboy TV shows and movies all the time before Star Trek.
And I mean, William Shatner. Have you seen a picture of him on a horse? Just like
I saw Star Trek Generations.
Yeah,
the horses came after it.
He's crazy Uncle Shatner at this point. Like,
there's a reason why there's unicorns in Star Trek 5.
What?
Yeah, so those horses that they're riding after Uhura does the fan dance, those are unicorns. If you look closely, there are small horns on them.
It's been a minute since I've seen those original movies because I think I watched it with them and I was like, that's
I didn't actually notice that until 2 months ago when I was showing it to some friends of mine who had never seen Star Trek 5. And I was like, wait just a damn minute, hit pause.
Yes.
Those are unicorns. Was he high? He was probably high. I mean, it was Shatner, so yeah.
I mean, Shatner. Yeah, his shirt was off just riding a unicorn.
He was making love to a mountain. So
still, you have to give it to right there the fact that you would have as an older have the idea of an older woman being desirable. That's not something you see in most movies. And Shatner was willing to do that with Michelle Nichols, which was awesome because Michelle Nichols is herself stunning, no matter what age she is.
I mean, I think Shatner is a DTF many a thing.
Yes.
Like, I know now he's 85, but like back in the day, he would have been like, "What up?" But now it's just like he's trying to like have his grandson sell you like yerba mate, and you're just like, I don't care about your grandson, William Shatner. Literally.
I didn't know he had a grandson.
He has many, and I only know this because like I went on the cruise, and I was like, I just want to hear Shatner talk, and it was literally all his grandkids telling stories, and I was like, I hate all of these children.
Wow. I mean, I knew he had at least 3 daughters. And
they had children, as women sometimes do.
As they do, yeah. It's just, I kind of stopped noticing that they were around because they were in one episode of original series.
Yeah, you don't need to pay attention to them.
One movie, and then never heard from them again.
You won't until their children are trying to sell you yerba mate, and you're just like,
I don't like yerba mate.
Nobody likes yerba mate, but it does wonders according to the snake oil salesman. It is Shatner's grandson. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
All right. Easter eggs with it.
Yeah.
We found a use for it, so there you go, guys.
That's
Yerba
the only
mate, buy it.
I'd
Before
like
we
to know
stand.
your take on when Cisco became the emissary.
Nonsense. Okay, I'm gonna go first because I know you love DS9.
Yeah, go for it. Go for
Okay,
it.
I hate DS9 with like a fiery passion because of the fact that Cisco is pretty much up there, like trying to avoid being responsible for these people who he came in and has to be responsible for inherently because there was already a little bit of like power and magic in the space station. It was close to this wormhole. It was people who were in charge, whether you wanted them to be or not, lording over you from space. And Cisco is sitting there trying to deny this inherent, already enforced power that he has. And I think that it was minimizing their cultural view to sit there and tell them that I'm not the emissary, like blah, blah, blah. Like, you say that maybe to like the Vedic and have a discussion with the Vedic about how maybe you're not the emissary. But you also recognize that in that culture, right now you have power, and what does that power mean? Because even in terms of the Prime Directive, they ignored the Prime Directive when they chose him.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to now be a responsible person, like an avatar chosen as part of destiny. And I think that he really doesn't do a very good job with his responsibility. That's my thing about Cisco.
Actually, I have to agree with that completely. Yeah, I was not a big fan of the whole way they went with the prophets and having Cisco be the emissary throughout Deep Space Nine. The one time I really did enjoy it was when the guy came out of the wormhole from how many centuries earlier and then was trying to reinstate the older social class. And they're saying, look, social classes change for a reason. We don't need to stick to tradition for tradition's sake. There's a reason why things change. That was the one time I liked the fact that he was the emissary. Other than that, pretty much exactly what you said.
Yeah, it's just like a problematic part of that entire series where you're just like, why has he got to be their Jesus? Like, they could have sent a Vedic up there to like commune with the people in the wormhole and not had that happen. And I know that there is an element of he flew into the wormhole and they chose him, or the wormhole sucked him up, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, there was, the end of the series where it turned out that his mom was inhabited by the prophets, which really gives a really creepy context. Well, not even the predetermination part. It's just she's not controlling her own actions. Well, from the standpoint of what they were going with in Deep Space Nine, she wasn't controlling her own actions, and Cisco's father was controlling his own. And so it was kind of non-consensual, that entire relationship, whether or not they knew it. And I found that to be a little too very much creepy a lot. But, that's me, and that's how I do
I mean,
that.
that is creepy when you frame it that way. I feel like I skated over that as like, oh, it's an alien lady.
Yeah.
So it's also in the lens that you're viewing it through. Look at that.
Yeah. I mean, when that episode came out, it was, 1997? 6?
Is that 20? They're coming up on their 25th, aren't they?
I think so.
Oh, that hurts my soul.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, I remember when, TNG premiered, so that's always troublesome.
I don't remember. I don't think I remember any of the premieres, but I have like images from childhood of like 7 of 9 walking aggressively down a hallway.
I mean, I can't remember original series or the animated series premiering because I wasn't born yet.
Me neither.
But then, I was around for the rest of them and going, hey, new Star Trek, this is awesome. And then, getting older in life and going, oh God, why did they do these certain parts of Star Trek? This is, this is kind of rapey. Why? This is very much,
there's a lot of problems.
There's a lot of problems
But
with
it's
Star
also
Trek.
like Star Trek is mired in the time that it was produced.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though they're super, super progressive in the sense of like they're dealing with a lot of issues, they can't be progressive because they're also like making a TV show in 1990s that's produced entirely by men.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's, you got to give Star Trek credit where credit is due for its forward thinkingness, but you also have to look at it as a show that's stuck in the the early 2000s, in the late 80s, and the 1970s. Like, it's stuck in these times. And we look at Kirk and we're like, what a misogynist pig. And then we look at Picard and he's like, he's forward-thinking, but there's other problems happening. And then it's like you look at the women captains, you're like, oh, women captains!
Yeah.
But there's other problems going on. Like, there's always going to be a problem when you look back at something 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just come down to where you need to be ultimately somewhat forgiving for and look at, as you said, the intent that they were going for.
Mm-hmm. And it is entertainment.
Yes, it is entertainment. It's not trying to make a solid, no, this is law or anything like that statement.
But it's also, you are dealing with things that wouldn't otherwise be dealt with. Like, it is like Stan Lee and Marvel. You are doing Roddenberry trying to do his best to deal with a whole bunch of stuff that isn't fun to deal with and that your censors won't let you deal with unless it's white people dealing with it.
So I really loved the original series and the original series movies because of the background stuff. The one time you'll see it in one episode stuff. In Court Martial, Kirk is on trial because they think he killed Lieutenant Commander Jamie. I can't think of his last name right now. I keep wanting to say Finney, except Finney is the guy from the Academy who was tormenting Kirk. Anyway, they think he killed him, and the first flag officer we see in Star Trek ever is a black man. And in that same episode, we see a space captain who is an Indian man. It's like, all right, cool. And then we see other flag officers who are, granted it's the 60s, so they're all men at this point, but we see other flag officers who are from different nations and like openly from different nations. We get into the movies. Star Trek II. We see Captain Terrell, a black man in command of a starship. Star Trek IV. We see the captain of the Saratoga, a black woman from a Caribbean nation. And then we see all sorts of flag officers in Federation capital, somewhere in France, whatever that's called. I can't think of it right now. But they get all the really, really good stuff in the background that just doesn't get talked about because of the background stuff. That's where the good parts of Star Trek is. It's what gets you thinking without realizing you're thinking about it.
Yeah, which, for the time, is important. Looking at what they were able to do. Perfect example of having a lack of women in command. If people know why they actually wouldn't have that in the original pilot. They had number one, and Roddenberry was insistent that he wanted to have proper diversity, and one of these things was having women in command.
Yep.
And CBS, and actually you have to blame women for this. Women in the 60s. CBS ran it through to have audience screenings. What did they think of this? What did they think of that? And so the women hated the Doctor. He was too old, so they had to get someone younger and hotter, DeForest Kelley. That the women loved him at the time. They loved Spock, so he stayed on. And number one, their comments on her. Who does she think she is? Being in command like that? What place does a woman have being in command like that? That is absurd. I would never watch this show.
Which is also like just proof of the gaslighting of women thinking that they can't do stuff like that. But it's like they were trying really, really hard to be super diverse, but it's like I said, mired in culture.
This is something that CBS itself NBC itself dictated to Roddenberry that he had to do these things. This is why we have Yeoman Rand and all these other things, because that he was not allowed to do what he wanted to do. He had to stick.
I heard him give a talk once where he said the studio gave him a choice. He could have the alien or he could have the woman.
Yeah.
And he figured science fiction, I'd better have an alien.
Yeah, he said in the 25th anniversary special that he kept the alien and married the woman. Because it would have been awkward to do the other way around.
Well, it's also they were talking about the kiss between her and Kirk, which is you watch it now and you're just like, really, that was the first one. This hurts me a little.
Yeah.
But it's like Shatner had to mess up every shot of them not kissing, so they had to put that kiss in.
Yeah.
That is just insane that he had to shoot this kiss 50 times, and they did 3 or 4 shots of no kiss. That's what they would have used if Shatner had not deliberately messed up these shots. Because the status quo and who you're selling to is always, at this point, going to be a majority white audience. And you just kind of assume that they're all, like, if you're a Hollywood executive, you're assuming they're like a little Midwestern and blue collar and like whatever that means. And that's what you have to be beholden to. And that's not what Star Trek should have been.
But just to my understanding with the kiss there, that was something, it wasn't just Shatner, just everyone on the crew, they kind of knew what was going on.
Oh, yeah.
And that, oh no, he messed up the shot again.
It's
oh no.
Yeah.
well, it's like they knew on the
Here you
ground.
go, executives.
Yeah.
We've got 49 shots of them not kissing,
And the one with the cross
and they're
eyes.
all awful.
Yep.
Yep.
Just didn't work.
Well, because that was his thinking. It's like, how do I make this so bad that the executives, these white male executives, just have to put it in? And that's how he did it. And as much as I'm just like, Shatner, you ass, I'm like, thank you, Shatner, you ass.
Yeah. I do have this headcanon that all the shots that we don't get to see of the bridge, where, Kirk, Spock, and Scotty are elsewhere, and Sulu's elsewhere, and they have to call back the ship, Uhura's in command, and we just don't get to see it because they don't, pan the camera that direction. That's my headcanon, and I keep it that way.
Did you see the animated series?
I saw the animated series.
So
I'm talking
the
about
one
the
where she
original
was in
series.
command?
There is one, the
Yeah.
Lolari
I can't remember the title.
Signal. I know the title, I can't pronounce it. But it's the one. We should wind up because this panel ended 6 minutes ago. 7 minutes ago. Thank you all for
That's why the
coming.
Marvel one went on.
Please stick around for the next panel.